presidential polls don't provide any good news for anyone, regardless of who you're supporting for president. In fact, the public seems to favor, there's no favoritism either way in who's running. You know, they're not crazy about Biden, they're not crazy about Trump, but they add one more factor, and that's third party, right? Add that into this.
Yeah, once you, when you look at the two-way races right now, I think recently Biden's pulled ahead by a couple points in the overall aggregate. But then you throw in the X factors where you have Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Cornel West, possibly even Jill Stein. Suddenly, you got a very real competition taking place here where the public says, oh, good, I don't have to pick one of the men that's knocking on the door of 80 years old.
Yeah.
I can go to somebody else. And it does, right now, the way the polls are looking, it definitely takes a bigger bite out of Biden's crowd than it does with Trump's crowd.
I don't have to go to somebody who's certifiably crazy or certifiably on death's bed. I now have an option, even though the point is this, it's a 1 point difference in favor of Trump. When whoever you put in there.
Yeah.
When you put Kennedy, isn't it 2 points? And if it's just Kennedy, it's 2 points. So the point being to all that is that the polls are hard to understand right now. You said, well, Biden's ahead. Well, not in the key states. The key states, he's having a real problem. And they swing states is where this is going to matter, don't you think? Tell me if I'm wrong about that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what I'm talking about is just the overall aggregate polling.
Yeah.
There was more that came out this morning where he has 2 to 3 points, again, nationally. But yeah, you start breaking it down to the swing states, and suddenly you've got Biden may pull ahead. Like recently, he pulled ahead in Pennsylvania by, I think, 10 points. But another problem we have right now is they're calling a lot of states swing states that are not swing states. They're calling Georgia a swing state. That was a fluke. It is a red state. Florida's a swing state. No, it's not. Come spend some time down here. You're going to realize quickly.
Well, they got 1 million more Republican people signed up in Florida.
Forget Florida.
Yeah.
So you've got some weirdness happening there. But, we spent a lot of time ahead of the 2020 election and 2016 election talking about these polls almost on a weekly basis. But I think this year we're dealing with so much uncertainty that I don't know how much stock I put into any of these. Things could be much worse for Biden than they look. They could be much worse for Trump than they look. They could be better for Bobby than they look.
Well,
so,
so Bobby right now is what, 10 points, 10%.
Yeah, I think that was
Ross Perot got to as high as 20, but he got to as high as 20 during this period of time. I mean, that's where he really started climbing. The media, of course, has blocked Kennedy out totally. At least I do remember when Ross Perot could at least get on stage and, you would listen to Ross Perot, you go, what the hell is he talking about? He'd have charts and all that kind of stuff. But they gave him access.
Yeah.
And here the media, they won't give any of these candidates access. Matter of fact, with Bobby, I mean, it goes as far as his mother showing up at the White House, having the whole family in a shot with. And, I thought about, what that's about? It's about their need for celebrity access to the White House. That's what that's all about. This is your son you're talking about. And you say, okay, I'm going to go to the White House with my whole family to support Biden. Great, but if you drill down, it's about their need for celebrity access to the White House. And it's really an ugly story. It's kind of an understory that we'll do. At this point, the numbers for Bobby, they're not high enough to do anything but potentially change the election. They can do that. And I think Bobby's numbers will continue growing. I think he'll reach Ross Perot's numbers, but I don't... And it presents a problem, I think, more for Biden than it does for Trump.
There is a big opportunity for Bobby coming up here.
Yeah.
We've got Donald Trump's first criminal trial. That's when you see people who say, well, listen, I'm a Republican.
Yeah,
I can't stomach Biden,
right.
But there's another guy.
Yeah.
Or maybe, well, I don't think they would go to Cornel West or Jill Stein.
They're not going
but
to.
That, I think, is Bobby's opportunity here.
Could be. I mean, you don't know. This is such a weird setting for an election. I mean, again, you got crazy guy, you got guy that, if he makes it to the election, great. But Kamala Harris may be that next one up. So people are thinking about that. That's what the polls are showing. That's not me just talking. The polls are clear on that. So all of a sudden, Bobby could be a contender.
Yeah, and I do think in general, wherever you stand, whoever it is you're supporting, most people on both sides of the aisle are like, man, I'll vote for my guy, but my God, I wish I didn't have to.
Yeah. Well,
And that's no way to hold elections.
Did you tell me, or somebody? I think Scott Milliken, who one of our producers, said that Bobby has become the podcast candidate. Did you see that? Yeah, where he is the candidate that, I mean, I think Cenk Uger's now out for him. Most of the podcasts are heavily going that way. I think that could have an impact too. But it's just right now he can't get access to media. You know, the corporate media is trying every damn thing they can to just freeze him out because he's anti-war, okay? He's pro-climate. He's anti-corp. He wants the corporations to come to be responsible when they harm people. And you don't hear these other guys talking about any of that. So I think he's got some talking points that the corporate media is afraid to allow him time with. That's a big problem. Farron, thanks for joining me, okay?
Thank you.
That's all for this week, but all these segments are going to be posted right here on this channel in the coming week, so make sure you subscribe. I'm Mike Papantonio, and this has been America's Lawyer. We tell you stories every week that corporate media won't tell you because their advertisers don't let them, because if they tell the story, the advertisement's going to be pulled, or their political connections don't allow for it. They're either too Republican or too Democrat, and they can't color outside those lines. Around here, we don't have that problem. As you watch one of these shows, you say, you can understand we don't really have sides. We try to call it as we see it. Hopefully, we'll see you next time.
That it had helped dirty money flow through its branches around the world, including at least 800...
Plaintiffs allege that the defendants provided money and medical goods to terrorist groups Hezbollah and Jaish al-Mahdi.
This is a well-organized business for these individuals that carry out these attacks. Terrorism is a business, and they run it like a business.
They knew about what was going on for a decade. They absolutely, no question about it, knew that HSBC was washing money. They had every reason to understand it was for terrorism and it was for drug cartels. Took no action whatsoever.
These banks are involved. Their accounts are connected, and they're using them to mask the transactions. The more complicated they can make the transactions, the more distance they can put between the bad guys and the seemingly legitimate purpose of these funds.
They pay $1.9 billion, which is a drop in the bucket compared to what they've made, and nobody goes to prison. These CEOs, these bankers that made this decision, they're safe at home. They know what they've done. It's resulted in the death of Americans, contractors and soldiers, not just hundreds, but thousands. And we look the other way because they don't look like criminals. The die is cast. The people that are responsible are on Wall Street.
And they don't look like criminals. It's almost a suspension of disbelief. Sometimes I'll have people call me and say, is this real? Do they really get away with this? Yeah, they do.